Building needs to be sprinkled. Well, it needs to be just even out of level. I mean, this is essentially an addition. Pick up all those cracks from where the partitions used to be.
I think they did some kind of technology stuff here.
Probably.
Because this is not walls.
No.
Yeah.
It was some type of
racks or what have you. For
computers.
Yeah.
And the computers of that time, because this building, you said, has been unoccupied for 15 years. So.
At least 15.
Yeah, so, you know, they were big, heavy monsters.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna tell you, yeah, because it was a telephone company, you know,
right.
A switching station.
Exactly.
And they had telephone operators and the whole bit.
Right.
I'm going to tell you now.
I'm recording our conversation.
Okay, good. I think that this building has an infinite amount of potential, and what I would suggest is simply letting me or someone who does what I do take a look at the drawings that you have, talking about the activities that you do want to incorporate, similar to what we talked about earlier today, and put together a program for the use of this space. You know, ideally what you want to be able to do is to identify for funders how you intend to use the space, and then develop, from that conversation, we can develop a set of conceptual drawings that show how we anticipate bringing the space back. You know, and maybe pay some attention to what you want to do on the facade, because the street presence is important. Depending again on whether we're going to incorporate any type of, the activities really are what's going to determine this. But if in fact we do residential activity as a part of this, then we need to look at ingress and egress issues, which I don't think are going to pose a major problem. You've got several means of getting in and out of the building on the side. There's a front door too, right?
Right.
Yeah, so I think that we could probably break this up in such a way that you can compartmentalize activities, so that what happens on maybe the first and even the second level could be separate and apart from what happens on this upper level, which in my opinion would be the most desirable level if you do residential development. If you don't do residential, I'm thinking that these could be maybe your incubated offices. You can do that on the second floor as well. But these column spaces lend themselves ideally to breaking up into individual spaces for entrepreneurs or other business startups. There could be spaces for professional offices. You could even set up medical offices in here. I see the potential here for a lot of different kinds of things. We'd have to maybe think a little bit more in a straight line in terms of what kinds of activities and how they're going to support each other. But if it's an incubation type of a function, you know, you could have accounting businesses, you could have professional services, architects, engineers, doctors, attorneys. You know, it could be any number of things. Could be associated. I don't think that there's any schools in the immediate neighborhood, but it could possibly.
There is.
There are.
Just
I'm
too
talking
lucky.
about like colleges.
Oh no, no,
yeah, see,
no. There's
public
not
schools, I know.
Yeah, right.
But if there were access to some of the universities in the neighborhood or in this community, then there may be a potential for adjunct spaces that they may use, that kind of thing. You know.
There's well, Hopkins is just right.
Hopkins is all over the city. That's true. So
Yeah, it's right over there. Yolo is over there.
That's true, because I just came past them on Cold Spring Lane.
Right. So you got those two that are close. Morgan, of course, is all the way on the other side of
It's on the
town.
other end of Cold Spring.
Coppin is not far.
Yeah, from drive distance, it's probably reasonable, actually.
Yeah.
And Coppin is expanding, I mean, tremendously. And I think that their anticipation is to have a neighborhood presence, too. So there may be some things you could explore with that. Ideally, we'll determine or you will determine what kinds of activities are most desirable, and then we can find a way to make them work. Volume-wise, space-wise, you don't have any problem. There's so much you can do with this building. I think that the mix of uses is pretty important in terms of what you want to do. You'd have to make some analysis, you know, in terms of what works best. So that might entail doing some kind of a feasibility study, just to determine what types of activities work best. Spatial analyses, things like that an architect ought to be able to do for you. But off the top of my head, I see some type of a food place where people can come and eat, you know, and drink and be merry kind of thing. So a little cafe or maybe some place that sells alcoholic beverages on the very bottom level. And other activities that might be associated with that, of course, a restaurant. Or you could have, I don't know, there's always a need for storage. And so there could, in fact, be space to support the activities of the functions that are going to occur on the upper levels. Or you could set it up so that it could be rented out because you got plenty of volume. And storage makes money. So maybe something like that. So just some thoughts initially off the top of my head. But certainly the building, in my opinion, is very much is a good candidate for rehabilitation. You know, the building structurally seems to be ideal, even though there are some leaks, which I'm not totally conversant with, but I'm of the opinion that because this is a flat slab, you know, poured-in-place concrete structure, that the remediation that's required for this building is not going to be earth-shattering. I can't say at this point what the square footage says, 30,000 square feet.
About 10,000 per floor.
Okay. Again, there's a lot to be done. Just so much to be done.
Yeah.
So, you know, some effort probably should be taken to put some type of preliminary cost analysis together in terms of what's going to take to restore the building. As I see it, the power systems probably all going to need to be installed new because I see no evidence of any lighting on this floor. So I assume that all that's been stripped out. Probably the panel that exists in the building is probably inadequate for the type of use that we've applied to it now based on the square footage. So all of that I would expect you to put in new. And I know we talked about energy efficient systems, so you may want to look at solar, and you talked about geothermal. I'm not as aware of geothermal, but certainly if we can find a way to harness solar energy for added power generation, or we could do some type of a cogeneration thing, but there's an initial first cost that's a lot higher with regard to that. You know, and dealing with maybe selling something back to the electrical company, getting off the grid, which might make sense. You got all of this roof surface, you got exposure to the south, so it seems to me that we could put an array or several arrays of collectors up on the roof and find a way to generate all the power that you need and heat the building that way too. I'm also a big fan of trying to find ways to use wind power. It's not very big in Baltimore. I think that since you don't have anything above us, I have to find out what the zoning is to see how high we could put a structure on this roof. So we might be able to put some type of an antenna or some type of a wind-generating propeller on top of this roof, or a series of those. So maybe we could develop a wind cogeneration farm on the roof in concert with some solar collectors. Okay, so there's possibility that all that could happen. I'd have to look into it a little further, but I think that the potential is here because you've got 10,000 square feet of roof surface. That's a lot.
Yeah, I know.
The other thing that I'm looking at, though, is that at this part of Cold Spring Lane, the street's not as wide and the traffic issues are a little bit tight. You know, rush hour traffic, you only have really one active lane in each direction.
Correct.
And I doubt that we're going to have any ability to do anything to impact the size of the street. The right-of-way is what it is. But the fact is that it's essentially a residential street. And I surmise that what we're dealing with here is putting a commercial activity at the end of this residential street. It's going to, if we're successful, it's going to generate a great deal of trips, which means the traffic that, although it's already bad on Cold Spring Lane, it's only going to make this considerably worse. Now, do you know what the zoning is right here, right now?
They say R5.
Okay, we'll verify that. R5 does not in and of itself preclude any type of commercial development. Whatever development you do here is going to be some form of mixed use. It might be several different kinds of commercial activity. Conceivably, it could be residential and commercial, and I think that might be